Hello and welcome to This Is. Today we have to talk about something which is very important. For the 5th time in as many months, we are wrong about a piece of technology. I know, it's hard to believe that your buddies Austin and Matt got it wrong. However, today we had to talk about the Samsung Galaxy S21, specifically why it does not, in fact, suck.
Samsung, based on all these leaks that we had, was potentially ruining the S21. And I'm happy to say that we were wrong.
So, a lot of what we said in that video is very true. When you look at what you got with the Samsung Galaxy S21, in some ways it is a bit of a downgrade, right? So things like the display, right? So we spent a lot of time talking about how they had lowered the resolution of the normal display, which was something that they had had for like 5 years or something.
Since like the S6.
The downside there is that while yes, this is going to make the screen slightly less sharp, thankfully, they are not just removing that and removing the charger and removing the micro SD card slot.
I mean, don't get me wrong, they are.
I mean, they are doing that.
They're doing all of that.
But the main thing that we talked about in that video was that the rumors were showing that the phone would be more expensive, right? So you're gonna be paying the same, if not slightly more. That is no longer the case, as the Galaxy S21 starts at $800, a full $200 less than the Galaxy S20 that it is replacing, and very much on par with something like the iPhone 12, which I think is very quickly becoming kind of like the sweet spot of the smartphone industry.
So we ranted about these, but we straight up said a lot of our argument becomes invalid if the price is cheaper, and it is, and that's why I'm glad.
Wait. Pause for a second. Can you play that clip back where we said that we were going to be?
I'll be honest, I'm fine if it was a downgrade, if they go ahead and downgrade the price.
See, there we go. See, we were right in a way, and we get another clickbait title out of it, so it's a win-win. So the Galaxy S21 and the 21 Plus and the 21 Ultra are now official, and while we have not gotten our hands on them, thanks, censored word that I can't say on YouTube before we get demonetized, but we have now seen all the specs, and we will be getting our hands on a Samsung Galaxy S21 soon, so make sure to stay subscribed. The things we know now are actually mostly positive, right? So first of all, the design language. I think the S21 looks good in so much as a flagship that is not a foldy boy can look in 2021.
And me, who's not a foldy boy, I like it better than the S20. I still don't love it. I don't love the notches not notches, but the camera bumps that Samsung does. But
I disagree.
I like it better than the S20.
See, here's the thing. Most all smartphones at this point have just like a camera bump, right? And while yes, you can look like the iPhone and like various different devices, they try to like style a little bit, but it's just like a bump. But this is actually really the main part of the design. They're not relying on a bunch of flashy colors. It's a nicely integrated chunk of the phone.
And it's funny you say that, because the only thing I like about it is like the two-tone purple and gold.
That's
like literally the only thing I'm like, you know what? I like that.
Yes.
But I know Ken likes that.
It's good. I totally agree. So there are other things that are new here, right? So we'll just go down the spec list. It's got the new Snapdragon 888, better processor. Impressively, this actually is coming out sooner than pretty much any other phone. So like typically this way that works for Samsung is that they will bring out the Galaxy S21 or the S line before everyone else, right? Yep. So if you want to get like the latest and greatest processor, they bring that out first. And alternatively, it also means that you're gonna have your phone be not obsolete sooner, right? Like I remember
you get a full year of
being in date. I think it's a good thing, right? So you buy the S21, it's got 5G, it's got everything you need. It's not going to be out of date anytime soon. There are some other things which I do think are worth talking about. So the screen, so it is a high refresh rate display, which means it is smoother, more responsive, looks better, etc., etc. Now the Galaxy S20 had that, but it didn't actually work the way that you wanted it to. It locked it to the resolution, and locked it to the frame rate, and you couldn't adjust it. So you either had to have high resolution or high frame rate. You couldn't have them both at the same time. This has been relieved because with this display, it will go from 48 to 120 hertz. Essentially, just like something like ProMotion on the iPad Pro, it means that you get that smooth, responsive experience when you want it, when you're scrolling, but you get the battery life when you're not, because it will slow that screen down and keep it from having to work so hard when you're staring at your doom scrolling Twitter feed. Except it actually only works when you stop scrolling, but you get what I mean, right? Now, the good thing here is that the S21 line is, I would say, 2/3 good. So you have the base S21, which is a 6.2 or something. It's like a fairly reasonable size flagship, personally the phone that I would like to rock. You have the larger 6.7-inch S21 Plus, which is a bad idea, don't buy that one. And then you have the S21 Ultra. Now you might wonder, why should you not buy the S21 Plus? Price. So here's the thing, the S21 and the Plus, they are essentially the same phone, right? So you have a slightly larger display on the Plus, you have a little bit more battery, and you have the ability to use your phone as a car key if you own a brand new BMW. If you do, congratulations on your opulence. If not, the two phones are nearly identical, and the kicker is, the S21 Plus costs $200 more. You heard that right. $200 more. You get the same storage, everything. There's no advantage in going to that phone besides the slightly larger display, essentially.
And again, my tune has completely changed since the last video, just because where the price point starts.
Yeah.
The same. I'm gonna say kudos to Samsung for the same reason I said kudos to Apple. They have a phone now at like every price point.
Yeah.
For whatever you want. So like one of the things we had talked about, I personally don't care about high resolution, high refresh rate.
Sure.
I'm fine with a 1080/60 screen. So I'm willing to buy the cheaper, smaller phone because that's one, saving money, but it fits better in my hand. It's like there's a lot
of small phone gang.
Yeah, there's a lot of good things for it. But if you want to have all the full specs and everything like that, you have an option. I agree with you that you shouldn't get the S21 Plus.
But what you should consider is the S21 Ultra. So this is also seeing a price cut. So essentially the lineup here is S21 is $800, S21 Plus is $1,000, and S21 Ultra is $1,200, all of which are roughly $200 less than their counterparts last year. With the Ultra, not only are you getting a 1440p, so the full resolution display, you also get up to 120 hertz, and it is a wider dynamic range on that. So it will go down to, I think it's like 10 frames per second. It'll go way down, so it should help with battery life. It's also the most advanced panel they've ever had, brightness, etc., etc. Very nice display on the Ultra. But around back is where it really shines, because you now have 1, 2, 3, 4.5 cameras, I think would be the way I would describe it. You have a time of flight sensor, so 4 actual cameras.
4 actual cameras, all of them capable of 4K 60.
Yes.
Including the selfie one, which is...
So that's 5 cameras.
Yeah. And then the rear ones can do 8K.
You can do 8K. Okay, so here's the deal, right? So the S21 Ultra has the same ultra wide, I believe, as all the S21s. And to be fair, don't forget that the S21 line, the non-ultra, and this is getting confusing, all the S21s have at least 3 cameras: ultra wide, wide, and telephoto, right? Which is something that, as we'll talk about later, something like the iPhone 12 can't really say. It doesn't have the ultra wide or the telephoto version. But what the Ultra has is a much larger and supposedly higher, well, we know it's high resolution. We'll see if the actual quality lines up, but a 108 megapixel main camera, right? Much larger sensor, much bigger glass, which is nice.
Interesting, because the reports we had gotten all had said that it was a smaller sensor. So
it's hard, well, to be fair, as of recording this video, we don't actually have the exact spec list on the sensor sizes, but I would be very shocked if it is not pretty much the same as last year. Apparently it's like an upgraded version of that, because I know that the Ultra last year had some issues with like autofocus, but regardless, very nice, supposedly, main camera. But you have 2 telephotos. So as opposed to last year where you had the 100 times space zoom, which is a 4 times zoom and lots and lots of cropping. Instead, this time you have 2 options. You have a 3 times telephoto, which is a nice usable range for a lot of things. And then you have a proper 10 times zoom. And then you can of course use the space zoom to go and zoom in beyond that. This should essentially mean that you are able to use the telephoto camera for, portraits of people and stuff. But if you really want to zoom all the way in, this space zoom should be much better. So there are legitimate reasons to go for the S21 Ultra. And while $1,200 is certainly expensive, in this ultra premium flagship range, first of all, it's cheaper than it was last year.
It wasn't that long ago they were doing videos on like how the hell do we have $1,000 smartphone flagships. Well, they've taken, both companies who really dictate the pricing of the market have taken huge steps to go away from those $1,000 mark.
Huge changes, right? So think about this, right? So like you said, when the iPhone 10 first came out, $1,000. What are you talking about? That's crazy. Then we see everyone shooting up to, $1,100, $1,200, $1,300, $1,400. But over the last 6 months, we've seen a correction. So the Pixel 5 was not even an ultra premium device, right? $700, not full flagship specs. We also saw things like Apple keeping not only the prices of a lot of their phones the same, but even lowering them a little bit. You now have the iPhone 12 mini, you have the iPhone 11 was cheaper than the one before it, and now we have Samsung cutting the prices of all their major flagships. Part of that, I think, at least on Samsung's side, is that they're trying to sell you Z Flips and Z Folds, which is obviously the best phone of all time. But the other side of that is that I think people are certainly just getting kind of tired of like, look, I'm not gonna spend $1,200 on this new phone unless it does something crazy, when you can buy a $500 phone, a $600 phone that will do basically everything 95% as well, right? There's certainly a major difference there.
So then how do you, like, with them in similar price points, how do you compare S21 to the iPhone 12 lineup?
I think it actually compares pretty favorably. So if you look at the iPhone 12, the standard model, not the mini, compared to the S21, they're essentially the same price, give or take $30 if you use Apple's little like trade-in, or not trade-in, they're like carrier activation credit.
Carrier credit.
Basically the same price. What you're looking at is the S21 has a maybe not quite as high-res screen, it's fairly close, but you do have that high refresh rate, which is in my opinion, a nice feature, especially if you don't have to actually fiddle with all the settings. If it just works, it's smooth when you want it, and it's power efficient when you don't.
I'm gonna step in there for 1 second, because there was something that we had mentioned in our last video that ended up getting cut out, and it was me saying that most people do not change the settings in their Samsung phones, and you're like, everyone's gonna come and yell at you. You know what the #1 comment was on our last video? I've never changed the setting on my Samsung phone. Meaning that most people had it running at 1080, even though it was a 1440 screen, they had it running at 1080.
To be fair, at this point, we don't know for sure if this is on by default, but I would very strongly suspect that it is.
They've been doing it for years. I don't see why they would change it now.
With the S21, you get 3 cameras on the back instead of 2. You get the ultra wide and the wide, which we'll see. The hardware isn't really necessarily better on the S21, but they had better processing. Generally speaking, the S20 had a great camera, so I would say that it's going to be in the ballpark, maybe not quite as good, but in the ballpark. And you do have a 3x telephoto on the S21, which is a major point, right? On the iPhone, you have to bump up to the Pro or the Pro Max to get a telephoto, which is significantly more expensive. You got 5G, which is the same across the board. You've got a design, which I would say the S21 in many ways looks just as good as the iPhone. I mean, obviously that's a matter of personal preference. You have wireless charging and reverse wireless charging on the S21. You don't have MagSafe, I suppose. Neither have a headphone jack, neither have micro SD. But I would say that they're pretty similar, but the S21 does have some real advantages, especially if it does get cut in price like the S20 models usually do.
Especially when the Note comes out is usually
here's the question.
We'll get
that's a real question.
But usually the Note comes out 3, 4, 5 months later, and then the S line gets a pretty hefty discount. But what we don't know this year is if there's even gonna be a Note.
Yes, because as we move on to the S20 Ultra, we're gonna ignore the S21 Plus because it sucks, and the S21 Ultra is just better. At $1,200, you're getting a lot. So you not only get Wi-Fi 6E, which is something that we haven't really talked about much, but essentially is a new spectrum that's been opened up for Wi-Fi. Essentially, this is an addition to Wi-Fi 6, so you will need new routers and phones and everything to use it, but it should give you much better performance because it's a brand new swath of spectrum which is just opened up. The Ultra does have that car key feature. It also does have support for the S Pen. So this is something which people have been asking for a long time. Now, to be fair,
me specifically,
the Ultra does not have an S Pen included in the box, and it does not have a place to store it, right? But you can buy an S Pen, and I believe you can use an S Pen from some devices. Like
any of the recent ones.
Yes, I don't actually have confirmation on exactly which S Pens work, but at least some recent ones. So if you have like a Tab or if you have a Note, you may be able to use the S Pen from that on your Ultra. This is a nice feature. This is a very nice thing.
I'm gonna rant about the Note for a second, and I just think that this is the final nail in the coffin for the Note line. This is like the 3rd year that we've talked about this. So like, why does the Note exist in this year? Why does the Note exist this year? What made it special became more blurred until ultimately it was just the S Pen. If I'm gonna have to choose between losing battery life to have a pen inside the thing, I think I'm choosing the S21. So like, what else could they put in a Note to make it different this year?
I will look. If you're a diehard Note user, props to you. I'm sure they'll keep making it for a bit. But the thing is, the S20 line has now pretty much entirely like cannibalized everything that the Note does well. There are certainly some minor things here and there, but generally speaking, it does everything the same, and it comes out 6 to 9 months beforehand, right? So you're almost getting a half outdated phone when the Note comes out.
Which is that was the case last year.
Yeah, but I'm very curious. What do you think about the Samsung Galaxy S21 lineup and how wrong we are with our continuous clickbait titles. But thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for ring-a-linging the ding-a-ling bell and being notified of all of our future mishaps and mistakes. And every once in a while we say something that's mildly intelligent. And until next time, thank you very much for watching.